morning. Yes, it is morning indeed. First thought I had today was, if gravity were to reverse itself while I was standing in this room, I would not be harmed at all because I can touch the ceiling, right? Touching the floor, touching the ceiling. No danger here. The view out my window is, amazing. Oh, look at that. That guy has a satellite dish.
Toodly doodly. All right, so you guys like the idea of story time with Danny? Oh, yeah. What the fuck now? Like, if I didn't look behind me and put my car in reverse, I would have backed right into this guy. And then I'd have to drive this car into the fucking ocean. It's a good thing I looked behind me before I drove away. You know? It's kind of, you forget which side to look out. Because, you know, Australia. That looks good enough. So we can do this. Oh man, this thing doesn't really move, but if you pop that clutch, she'll fucking do it. Watch me jump this curb right here. Hold on. This guy with this Holden. Here we go. Oh, god damn, son. Wreck your shit, yeah, woo! We're gonna go to Kings Park right now, and then I'm gonna tell you guys a story about why I don't have any friends from college. Paints me kind of in a negative light, you know, but I figure like we know each other now. I might as well tell you about what it was like going to school with the egomaniac named Danny. Okay, so I was gonna tell you guys a story about why I didn't have any friends in, what do you call it, college. I probably look pretty ridiculous laying on the grass like this, but it's nice grass. I went to UCLA for my undergraduate degree, and part of going to UCLA is being like a smart person, I guess. Like, it's a really hard school to get into. To get into UCLA, you have to have pretty much a perfect SAT score and like a horrible family tragedy that you had to overcome. So getting in was like a really, really big deal. I actually applied to two schools, UC Berkeley and UCLA, and I got into UCLA. I got waitlisted at Berkeley. Anyway, going to UCLA, and they have this, they have a couple different honors programs whilst you're there. They have the collegiate honors program, which is basically just like you got a high GPA, so you get collegiate honors. There's departmental honors, which is like within your department, you write an honors thesis and you get the departmental honors. And then there's like Latin honors, which is another GPA thing. Cum laude, summa cum laude, that nonsense. So GPA is like really important, especially if you're gonna like go to law school, which at that time was really important. And when I get there, I feel like a really smart person. But now I'm like a really smart person surrounded by really smart people. But as it turns out, the really smart people were fucking idiots. They had like never been away from home or something. They were like all about like, oh dude, let's go get drunk. Let's, you know, whatever this, whatever that. Like, I wasn't into that whole scene. I was more like, well, there's people that have been nominated for Nobel Prizes that are teaching classes, so I want to take those classes. I don't give a fuck if the class is 7 a.m. or 3 or whatever. I picked my classes based on the professors that were teaching them, not on when the class was. And some people are like, oh, I don't want to take the 7 a.m. class because I'd have to wake up at 7. Are you serious? You're not gonna, dude's nominated for a Nobel Prize and you're like, no, 7 a.m.'s too early to wake up. So I didn't really understand the mentality of these fucking people I was going to school with. Don't get me wrong, some of them were way smarter than me, but they're on another planet. They're the type of people you can't even really talk to because they speak in code that only genius people can talk. And I'm not a genius person, I'm just like, you know, I know a few things, about a few things. So somehow I schemed my way into the departmental honors program, the interdepartmental honors program, which is basically a program where you can take classes that are not necessarily part of your department. Like, let's say you're really smart and your major is history, but you really wanted to know what physics was about. You could take an interdepartmental history physics, which studies, you know, the history of physics, but it's like heavier on the history part and less on the physics. And I love stories. I love nonfiction stories. I love stories, so I loved history, which was my major. So I get into this interdepartmental program and I start talking to like geologists, and I mean, there was just like no shortage of awesome shit happening all over school all the time. History of medicine, history of philosophical thought, and you name it, I took a class. And they were all taught by like the leaders of the field. One of the classes was this cultural class. Like it wasn't really a history class, it was more like an interdepartmental, like, I don't even remember what the class was called, to be honest, but it was taught by Henry Yu. And there was like 300 people in this class. This is like one of those fancy classes where they try to get the most
out of each professor. Look at this poor bastard. It says here on the sign that he's actually making a recovery. That's not how I want to recover. So Henry is the guy who basically came up with the idea that, well, he's Chinese. Well, he's not. He's actually Canadian. And that's kind of the point. Because like people would ask him like, hey Henry, where are you from? And he'd be like, Canada. And they look at him and they're like, well, no, actually your name's Henry Yu. Like, Chinese, Japanese, like what are you? And he's like, well, I'm Canadian. He's been like in Canada for like the last 7 generations. So he's like, Canadian, I'm Canadian. And so that's the point. Like, you don't necessarily identify with the culture that people identify you with because you have nothing to do with that culture. He's so far removed from China, he identifies with the Canadian culture as opposed to the Chinese one, but everybody identifies him as the Chinese. So he's like one of the first people to like take this idea and make it a point. Well, maybe he wasn't. I don't know exactly what he did, to be honest. It seemed like an interesting class about culture and ideas of culture, and so I thought, fuck it, I'll take it. Me in this auditorium of 300 people. And here's the other thing about me in college. I didn't hang out with people that were my own age. I didn't hang out with any student. There was one girl that I liked, her name was Allison, but she didn't like me, so, you know, it was easy to not hang out with her. What am I getting? Oh, what the fuck's the point of this whole thing? So there's a class taught by Henry Yu about culture or some shit. And there's 300 kids in this class and they're all kind of interdepartmental honor students. So they're all smartest people, the smartest people in the smartest university, the smartest, whatever. First day of this class, Professor Henry Yu walks in and he goes, all right, there's about 300 of you in this class. And your first assignment is to write a paper about something interesting. And everyone's just like, what are you talking about, something interesting? He's like, well, yeah, that's what you gotta do. You gotta write a paper about something interesting. Make it interesting. Whatever it is, make it interesting. I'm gonna read the papers. You know, it'll be the only thing I read. I got TAs to do the rest of the reading, but you know, write a paper about something interesting. And everyone's just kind of like, well, how long does the paper have to be? He's like, 1 page. And what does it have to be about? Something interesting. So 1-page paper about something interesting. That was all he gave us. People wanted more. People wanted to know, like, what is this paper about? How much of this paper is our grade? And he was just like, it's not really about the grade, but let's say it's worth 10% of your grade. And let's say it has to be interesting. And that's all there is to it. Another thing about college that I used to do a lot of that no one else really takes advantage of is the office hours of the professors. I always go to every office hour that they have, I go to. Because why the fuck not? Smart people, they're academics, they're, you know, brilliant minds. Why not just go to the office hours and shoot the shit with them? That's what I would do. And I would just go to their office hours and I would talk to them about whatever. No, not even class stuff, just like, you know, stuff. You know, like, oh, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And who are you voting for? And whatever. This is kind of neat. It's like a guy walk bridge thing. Nice. Anyway, so yeah, I go to office hours, Henry Yu, and I'm just like, yeah, interesting paper. He's like, yeah, really, anything you want, as long as it's interesting, you know. He's like, it's less an assignment about, you know, content and more an assignment about form. Can you make people feel interested in anything? So I think I wrote my paper about like working at Blockbuster or something like that. Like, it wasn't really how I got fired and type of shit that used to go down. And that Friday, everybody turns in their paper. The next Thursday, I think everybody got a grade, and it was kind of fun because Henry came in with this whole little presentation. He was basically like, oh, look at this bridge. This bridge is kind of cool. Look at that bridge, huh? Interesting. So he comes in and he tells everybody, like, this is how the grades got dispersed before y'all freak out. First of all, 50% of the class, roughly half, failed the assignment. That's just, you got an F, the way it is. You got an F, your paper failed to be interesting. Then he goes, 20% of the class all got D's. They wouldn't let me fail 70% of the class in the first assignment, so I had to give 20% of you D's. 10% of you got C's, that little group got B's, and I only gave out 3 A's. So out of the 300 of you, 3 of you got an A. 1%. Those people's papers were interesting, and that's all we're gonna talk about. There's not gonna be any discussions about why you're failing the class or whatever. That's how it broke down. So if you got an F, don't feel bad. Most people did. Now, at this moment, I looking at my paper, I was one of the 3 A's, right? Feeling pretty special. I mean, here we are, one of like the highest institutions of the land, you know, the cream of the cream of the cream, and then the honors class, which is like the cream of that cream, and then like Henry Yu's class, which is like the cream of that cream. And then to be one of 3 people in that group, it was kind of like, yeah. And I kind of feel like every day for me now is kind of like that class. Now what happens next is hilarious. Naturally, a lot of the students were kind of like, WTF, you can't fail me. I haven't ever gotten an F ever in my life, ever, and I'm not gonna get one now. So the next class, I remember Henry coming in, and he was like, all right, a lot of you guys went to the dean and you complained about your grade, so here's what we're gonna do as extra credit. He goes, get out a piece of paper, write my name on the top of it, and then you give me a grade. If you think I'm an F as a teacher, then go ahead and give me an F. If you think I'm an A as a teacher, give me an A. But whatever grade you feel like you want to give me as a professor, go ahead and put that next to my name on that piece of paper. All right, now if you've done that, great. Now take that piece of paper and throw it away. Because nobody cares. Because there's your name on a piece of paper and the grade I give you is different than my name on a piece of paper and the grade you give me. See the difference there, class? The difference between the professor writing your name in a grade and the student writing my name in a grade. Like, no one gives a shit what you think, because you're an uninteresting person. Only thing people care about is what grade I give you. And going to the dean and complaining about your grade isn't going to change how uninteresting you are. That was a fairly rude awakening for most of them, I'd say. But I think it really illustrates a point. I'm a genius. I'm an interesting person, which made it very difficult for me to make friends. I was the guy hanging out in the special books room in the library, reading original manuscripts with white gloves. I was not the guy at the barbecue. I was not the guy at the party. I was not the guy trying to get laid. I don't know. Did I try? No, wouldn't say I tried. I mean, it happened, but I didn't really try. I mean, it didn't happen a lot. It wasn't like people were throwing vaginas at me. That was kind of an asshole. 90% of the time, I was a raging asshole. I just thought I was better than everyone. Yeah, I really did. And nobody wants to hang out with a guy who thinks they're better than them. So I had to tone that down a bit in life in order to communicate with people. I wonder where all those people are now. I can tell you where they're not. They're not going for an afternoon stroll through Kings Park in Perth, Australia. Look at this fat tree. How fat is that tree? I actually wonder what's in it. What if it was filled with honey or something, and all we had to do was poke a tiny little hole and we could drink all of its honey? I love you, my little lemon drops. After all this searching, I finally found it. Behold, the double helix stairway to nowhere. Naturally, we're at the top. Just awesome. What a great idea.